Any questions on the homework? I talked to a few of you guys early on before class, but
Yeah, I have a question.
yeah.
This the drywall.
Okay.
How could you find it? Like, I choose one. Like, there's a shortcut like D letter, and there is some of them. So CMU walls, it is clear to know. But the drywall.
So the drywall is going to be. I'll show. I think I have the model open.
So this is the CMU.
So yeah, so these aren't necessarily all CMU. So this partition, 3 5/8 steel stud, one side jip, that's a drywall partition. So anything that's a steel stud wall, steel or metal stud, same term. So those would be your drywall partitions.
So except the concrete wall and CMU wall, the other all are drywalls.
Correct. Yep, the STC ones, those are steel stud, demountable. That's probably the toilet partitions, I think. Or it could be, I'd have to look at it.
No, I think the toilet partitions were in special equipment.
Yeah.
So demountable partitions, they'll have like office cubicles sometimes will be. So these are kind of like movable walls type stuff, demountable. So those would be a specialty item. So either it's likely Division 10, possibly Division 11. Yeah. The concrete, obviously, that's Division 3, right? Furring walls, that's going to be part of drywall. 4-inch studs. Yeah, so gypsum board or drywall, same term, right? Fence, that's actually, if it's interior fence, it'd most likely be Division 11. Like I said, sometimes the 10, 11, 12, there's some things that kind of are a little gray in which lines they fall in. But yeah, it's tricky sometimes figuring out, especially if you're not as familiar. So
Maybe under 1 hour, 2 hour was drywall.
So 1 hour will be drywall, yeah. Because sometimes a shaft wall will be, I guess always shaft wall is going to be a drywall setup. Usually 2 layers of gyp on each side. You'll have CMU walls that will be kind of your core walls around, like elevator shafts. A lot of times those will be CMU, or they'll be a shaft wall with its gyp board. So, yeah.
So I went and I did a find
Uh-huh.
items,
Uh-huh.
and I looked for gypsum walls, and it has the walls and ceiling. But
Mhm.
when it found it in the selection tree, and I was trying to drag it, it would
Wouldn't let you.
no, it said it was an error, and I was trying to drag it to Division 9, but it wouldn't go.
Yeah, sometimes when you are doing the search tool and you pick something, go away. Don't want you there. Why is that there?
And I tried creating a set and see if I could
It
drag it then, but it wouldn't either.
because when you do it, sometimes it'll pick up the deepest part,
And it won't do it.
and you can't take off from this level. Even if anything in that search, if just one little thing got selected. And so what I always do, and I think it helps, is you always, whenever you open up a model, you only have to do this once on your own computer, but in these lab computers where it refreshes, click on something, right-click, and do the set selection resolution to first object. Or you can go in settings and do the same thing. But I think when you run your selection sets, then it knows to pick the first object rather than the last object.
When you was asking about the door, you didn't ask about the cabinet.
No.
The cabinet doors belong to cabinet.
Correct. Yeah, that would be, yeah. Typically we don't take off the cabinet doors, so that would still be, and it may be modeled separately. Maybe the architect did that, but we would just want to know like lineal foot of cabinet. So what division is cabinets in? Which is what division number?
13.
15.
Is it?
It's not 7. 6?
Division 6. 6200 is finished carpentry, 64 is architectural woodwork.
What about the cabinet you buy from Office Depot? That is considered as also.
Yeah, that would be cabinet. So unless you have like the stuff that you're sitting at, so it's more like furniture items, that would be division 12. These things, cubicles, that's division 12. But any wood casework or plastic laminate casework, wall cabinets, base cabinets, division 6. Any other questions?
So the furniture you buy is in the furniture. The furniture you make is in that.
Yeah. If you can pick it up yourself, then it's going to be a furnishings. But if you have to nail it to the wall, it's probably going to be casework, which would be division 6. Did everyone tackle the extra credit? Yeah? Kind of?
What about the
Some of them?
stairs? The stairs like.
Yeah, someone brought that up too, that it wasn't showing you what material it was.
Yeah, that's not.
If it is like a steel or it's gonna be a concrete, so this concrete is gonna be belong to concrete division.
Yeah. So, that would be an RFI. So yeah, it looks to me like this is it's definitely a steel stair, and it's either pan filled or steel tread. So those could be a pan that you would fill in concrete, and so you'd have a concrete element, but this would be a steel item in your miscellaneous metals, which is 5,500.
How could you tell it's steel concrete?
Because you can see the joists. So if you look under here, that stringer
Oh, if it's
along the edge, concrete would just kind of be one big mass.
Yeah.
But if it has this stringer here and this very sharp angles and stuff, and they're thin treads, that's going to be steel. And your railings will be separate. That'll be in Miss Metals as well. So yeah, sometimes you got to do some detective work. The plans would show it, hopefully, but the model sometimes isn't always as clear.
I have another question.
Okay?
The roofing, not the ceiling, the roofing, there are two parts of the roofing. One part is substantial roofing. The one like the sticks.
It calls it mullions. Yeah.
Yeah, what's that?
So that's just going to be, so for the purposes of taking off the roof, you only need the square footage of these panels. You wouldn't need to know the lineal foot of these mullions.
The roofing is metal, but the other one absolute roofing.
Yeah, so these are both going to be metal. It's just they have this so rain and stuff flows off in a straight line, and like for snow,
So it's still in roofing.
correct. This would all be part of the roof
Still is
assembly.
metal.
This is division 7, not 5. So division 5 is metals, where you have structural steel,
Yeah.
and then, so I guess that's kind of a gray area. But usually any of your roofing, which is moisture protection, is going to be in division 7. And so it would probably fall under somewhere probably around 7,700.
What about the mechanical equipment?
That's
Like ventilation, some stuff. What do you?
23.
It's actually is. Why it's not the other one?
So any
Yeah,
so
I put it here.
equipment, yeah, the Division 11 equipment is basically all the other equipment except for the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical equipment. Yeah.
And what is the difference between the two electricals? So the last one,
Mm-hmm.
the last division, I think, I believe, and
The very
last one. Yeah, that one, and there is just electrical.
right
This
26.
is like for high voltage or something like the outside from the
Yeah. So we don't typically use more than up to Division 32. All these ones are very non-typical. So I think this would be something like literally like generator, like power plant type generator stuff.
Yeah, the big one.
48, yeah.
Or use solar panels too.
But usually, photovoltaic that falls still under 26. But yeah,
City design. Oh yeah, this one.
and usually it's just under the 20, just the main electrical. I just dump everything in there. And so again, a lot of it, you don't always have to make sure all my lighting is in this one and then my base electrical is in this for my takeoff. You're the master of your own takeoff, and so if you find that, as long as it's down in the right division, so just all my electrical will be all in just 2600 electrical, and then all my CMU and brick and everything will just all be in Division 4, and I can go through it if I want. So again, it's different schools of thought of how detailed you want to be, because it's the more detailed you get, the more time it takes usually, right? And so the less detailed you get, it's quicker, but sometimes it could be not as advantageous because you have to sort through it, or it's maybe not as accurate. So pluses and minuses.
Would you choose one or the other depending on the size of the model?
Like how detailed I get?
Exactly. Like if it's a big model, would you go really detailed or more broad versus if it's a smaller model, go more detailed versus broad?
I'd say it more depends on what my end result needs to be. Because if I need a detailed estimate, no matter if it's a small model or big model, I still need a detailed estimate. So, yeah. Okay? Any other questions? That's good.
Can you get passwords for that, for the finance or something like that?
No.
No.
You talking about for the midterm? Because I was going to say you have those.
No,
I
I'm
like
talking,
that.
I'm talking about this one, which is just the entire, takeover.
For the homework?
Yeah. Like
Um,
how it should be, because, I put my way, he put his way.
Yeah.
Everybody can
Everybody
Kind of
put
an
their-
answer
whatever
key?
way.
Yeah. So the one
So-
you use for grading or something.
Yeah,
I believe like each estimator has its own way to how to organize
totally.
the divisions. Like not 85 or 90% they are same,
Sure.
but some
Yeah, I can post that.
small things. Yeah.
We could start making some notes.
Sorry.
But you asked if you could put the answers to the final.
That's what he-
Yeah, we all
That's
like
why I was
that.
like, oh wow.
That's what I thought too.
Give me 7.
Okay. So today we're going to jump into Timberline. Okay. And so since you guys don't have Timberline on your machines at home, we'll just be able to be on it while we're in class here. So I'm going to go through kind of some highlights of the benefits of using a Timberline-like program, and then I'm going to demo a little bit on it, and then we're going to run through an exercise and kind of be an in-class assignment on it. Okay? So some of the key, we call it a database estimating program, right? Something where you have a whole shopping list of items already built in that you're drawing from. So being able to standardize your estimates is a very important part of estimating. And if you have a standard estimate, that means my concrete item is always called this special name. It allows you to kind of keep some quality control, but it also allows you to, if you want to draw on historical data, you can do it much more effectively and clean if everything's named in the same way, right? And so, because if you called concrete one thing or had some cost code associated with it and then it changed throughout each project because you just made it up as you went, then it would be very difficult to say, what's my average concrete cost for the last 10 years on all my projects? Because you'd have to go to every single project and track down what that price was for that particular project. Does that make sense? So it kind of goes into the idea of standardizing like your item catalog, the same thing. If you had everything set up the exact same way, then it could be pretty slick in a lot of different situations where you're taking off, you have now this historical data of all these takeoffs, and you know when I want to find elevator doors, I'm going to know exactly where that is. It's going to be in my Division 14 right next to elevators instead of anywhere else. So there's a lot of benefits to being able to have a standardized setup and process. Usually with database programs, you're able to have many users in the same file, so helps with collaboration, helps with sharing your information company-wide. Integrating into BIM, so Timberline is working on a beta for having a tie-in to Navisworks. I think I mentioned that before. There's other softwares out there that have that tie-in. Deep Profiler is one where you're making kind of a schematic model and it's directly tied to your estimate. Wow. And Vico is another one where it kind of has that integration built right in. And so with database and model, you can do a lot when you have them both together. Kind of like I talked about the data analysis for having historical data, it's when you have a database estimating program, you're able to analyze that much easier, much quicker. And then with the database, and we'll show you this, there's setup assemblies, which would mean by putting in one quantity from your takeoff, for instance, a drywall partition. Say I have 50 lineal feet of this metal stud drywall partition. It can automatically pull in, okay, I know that means this many studs, this many pieces of drywall, this much tape, this much plaster, this much paint, all just by putting in that one quantity. And so you can have the software do a lot of work for you instead of you having to type in each one of those individual items by hand. So pre-built assemblies, that's what that means. You can have the software leveraged in your favor for doing takeoffs. There's also, these are some other benefits that I've found. Being able to track different aspects, lead points, and being able to track leads as far as business development leads. So if you have a database, it's the same thing. It's always called the same thing. It's always in the same system. And so you can look, and if you know, you want to find out how many projects have I had that are public works and elementary school. You know, if it's in your database system, it's just a matter of filtering out those items, and you can find information very easily and quickly. A lot of them have built-in reports that you can export, and so your proposal's already written. It's kind of standardized forms instead of having to kind of reinvent the wheel each time. And they also can integrate in these other aspects: project management, scheduling, and accounting. So a lot of really good benefits. Like I said, there's several different softwares that are out there. Timberline has been around for a long time, and it's one that our company has used and a lot of companies have used, but there are several others that are up and coming just with all this new technology and BIM excitement. So one of the reasons why we haven't fully adopted Timberline in my company, CW Driver, is that Excel is pretty limitless in what you can do, right? Very customizable. But with these database programs, you're limited somewhat in what it can do. It's not just kind of limitless. So that can be a drawback. And also, if you have a database and you never update your pricing, then you're not going to get a good estimate, even if it's doing a lot of this work for you. It's still going to be trash in, trash out, right? So it takes upkeep. So sometimes that can be a downfall, because if you rely on a database that's outdated, you can get yourself in trouble real quick. That's actually happened at our company before. People just didn't take the time to actually look at what are these numbers that I'm pulling in. It's just, oh, this is super fast, and wow, you're doing a great job, Mr. Estimator. You pump those estimates out so fast, and when it comes around to bid and it's way off, later you're fired, or whatever. So it's important to keep it up to date, and that takes time and effort. So I kind of played into those next two. Sometimes you can rely too heavily on, oh, it's in the database, it's good, and you don't think about, well, this is a different situation. For instance, if you have a drywall partition that's on the ground floor of a single-story building, and you've got really nice access, no issues, you've got a big site, how is that different than if you were up on the 23rd story of a really narrow high-rise? Your productivity is going to be different. There's different factors. So if you just kind of blanket say, oh, it's in the database, it's good, and just run with it, then you can get yourself in trouble too.
Environmental issues like California, like we have the same foundation here in Ohio. Of course, here is more expensive because earthquakes and
Totally.
depends on the location of the project.
Yeah, and every project is so different depending on the soils report, right? So there's some note in the soils report that you have to over-excavate, 10 feet under your building pad and recompact up 10 feet, then it's going to be a very different number than if you figured you could just go right on grade. So again, the idea is to let computers do things that computers are good at, and then let us do the things that we're good at, the critical thinking part. So the idea is you can get this software to help you to do some of the mundane parts quickly and then spend more time thinking about your estimate. But sometimes when you're in a rush, you just you roll with it, and so can be a restriction, can be a problem. Yeah, Homer.
Just George, on updating the database. I know this is not a question, but I'm just
Like in our company, or just in general, or yeah, usually usually depending on the size of the company, it's going to be probably one individual that's tasked with that, and whether they do it every 6 months, every 12 months, every month, after every project, that's kind of up to the company to do that, because it can be a big task.
So what kind of skills does that person have? Like, for example, he's knowledge of BIM, he's knowledge of pricing estimating, he's knowledge of engineering. I'm curious.
So they would have to, that's a good question. They would need the knowledge of the market and prices, right? Yeah. So ideally you'd be getting your updating your prices based off of historical data, and then kind of doing some forecasting. So you'd need to have that person, that individual would need to know how to query all that data. So they need to be savvy on some kind of software to do that. And then being able to think and look at market trends and to say, okay, concrete prices are going up, so everything related to concrete needs to go up 5% for this year. So yeah, we're still figuring out just that. Who's going to do that? How often is it going to be? And what's the process? For our initial update, our idea is that we'll just export the entire list of all our items, which is thousands of items, and then send it around to all our lead estimators and have them put their 2 cents in at what they think the current unit prices are. And then from there, that's the initial update, and then it's just kind of tweaking it from there. But yeah, it can be a huge job.
Do you create some kind of like regression line between all the points to get some equation to go ahead and project the future?
It's probably more just up here, and kind of a gut feel, probably a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, but you could try and analyze it and see where it's trending. But it's all, look into the magic crystal ball, it's who knows. But yeah, you're making your best guesses where you think the market's going to go. Yeah.
Like for the small project, maybe anyone can track the project activity prices. But for the big project, we're going to have 2 prices before start the project and doing the activities. So some prices, some activities will.
So like the budget
go
versus
up,
the final cost?
Exactly. So because the estimator, you as an estimator, you're going to be responsible about what you pay for you. For example, priced the laborers for the drywall, like for example, like $1,000, but in reality, $1,500.
Yeah.
So who's going to track?
Yeah.
Track this differences?
Yeah, so that's a very good point. And so on every job, there's something called a schedule of values.
The scheduler.
No, the schedule of values is what the project manager he gets from his subcontractors and saying it's like what actually it cost, right? So he's saying it's kind of broken down into different categories, whether it's parts of the building, parts of the construction. So for instance, your concrete guy on his schedule of values that he gives to the project manager, it's basically his bill. It'll have, how many concrete footings and what that costs, and then how much slab on grade and what that costs. And so the smart thing to do would be to harvest that schedule of value data, then compare it to the budget data, right? And then see, so obviously the schedule of values is going to trump because that's what it actually costs to go in. And so you can kind of see, we've only been budgeting, $80 a cubic yard for concrete, but really it's looking like it's more like 100, 120. So that would need to go into the database now at 100, 120 a yard.
So you are as estimator responsible about that, or you?
As far as that updating of the database?
Yeah. For the pricing.
So the update of the database that individual should be looking at both what's our historical budgeted values and also what's our historical actual costs. And that should be in the database. Every estimator, when you do a project, I don't think you should just be relying on what's in the database. It's kind of more of a starting point. So when you pull in and you're doing your takeoffs and it pulls in and it says concrete's at $80 a yard, and you look at this and this is a complex building, I think concrete material has gone up, I heard, in the last little bit, so I'm going to beef this up to a little higher. So there should be that check on every estimate, right? We shouldn't just be relying on what's in the database. So I don't know if that answered your question. So I guess a little bit of both. The estimator should be doing it on every project, and then on a global and a company-wide sense, that person who's responsible for updating the database needs to be looking at all of those different factors too. You can see how it's a big undertaking, right?
You're gonna have the interns do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, because in reality, we put
Are you
prices for the
trusting the
first
interest of that?
activities. We give more money to
Mhm.
get money, through the project,
Uh-huh.
and then the last activities we give her a less pricing.
Yeah, but sometimes it's the other way around. You think you're padding it, but really you were way off. You were way under.
Yeah, but it should be like a logical.
There's always overs and unders
Yeah.
at the end of every job, and you hopefully end up a little bit above the line rather than below. But it's always ups and downs. So, yeah. You had a question, Mark?
Yeah, so especially when you're not working from the construction plans and estimating typically, how do you account for things like, well, the engineers and the architect differences? Because one a structural engineer is going to call out, I don't know, number 9s versus number 7 rebar, or
Mm-hmm.
or add rebar along the way, or we have a case now where the building that's a booger that I don't think we figured in double drywall in all these areas that the architect wants it, and
Right.
isomax springs for this, stuff that wasn't on
Yeah.
the bid stuff.
So that's the art side of being an estimator.
Okay.
So, and I think what you're talking about is coming from early drawing stage, budgeting, up until the final construction documents, right? So, how do you account for these things that you have no idea about before they're actually ever exist yet in the drawings? So that's why we carry contingencies. So usually you'll have a construction, like a design contingency, meaning that's going to be like added scope. So a design contingency would be, what would be covered under that is if the architect added a new stairwell that wasn't there at all.
Yeah, always.
Totally. That's why you have contingencies at sometimes up to 5%. And then you have your construction contingency, and that's for more things that you just didn't see. Things got detailed a little better, and this actually needs to be gold plated instead of just stainless, or things like that. So, so contingencies. That's how you account for that. You try and do your best at thinking about every possible thing that could possibly be needed on this one napkin sketch, and make assumptions, and then you throw contingencies at it. Yeah, Hebert?
To answer your question, I can tell you, but according to my experience, it's the estimator who put together the schedule of values and give it to the project manager, and so that's the base of the budget for the project. So the project manager is responsible to control the cost, so he cannot go over that budget. And when he's going over, he will report to the estimator or the owner or whatever, and you will start making changes here and there to control that, so cost control. So, but it's the project manager who is responsible to control the budget.
I think it's done on a monthly basis. Done on a monthly basis. It's like every time when you when you submit your
Billings.
billings,
Mhm.
as part of it is like when you do update the schedule and you update the schedule of value, and it's like the project manager is involved.
Will be, I guess, depending on the size of the project. I mean, we do small projects and we do like every week.
Oh,
You know.
So who gives me the data? The data for the new pricing, or for the actual pricing,
The subcontractor.
through the activities of the project?
So
The estimator?
no, so he gets the budget from the estimator, And then what it actually comes in at should be based off of that subcontractor's proposal, plus any change orders, or plus any things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned about a soils report. Now, you as the estimator, are you in charge to review the soils report to account for any possible costs coming through?
Definitely.
Okay.
Hmm.
So if you, like, let's say this happened to get an old report because the owner didn't want to pay for an updated soils report, so you went with that, and you're during the construction side and you have a bunch of boulders that were not there from the other report, was these so magically appear over time, then who should be held responsible for this? You as the GC or the owner for not paying a soils report that
Well,
you requested it but denied the cost because it would be too expensive and it's unnecessary?
totally. I think that would be a lawsuit, and I think they'd each try and fight for it. Me, especially being a contractor, I would say, like, kind of how the way you framed it is that should be the owner. Like, they didn't do their due diligence to get current soils reports, so they should pay for it. But the owner would probably have a side.
I got a homework about what she asked you exactly.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because my husband's going through something like that, and
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you gotta sue.
Yeah.
Well, basically what it says, that's what the homework says. It's like the owner or who's the stockholder, they worded it's the GC will responsible on soil report. He given the preliminary report, but the GC is considered as the permanent, the final report. So that's what happened when they found out there's like the brown area and they have to put a new soil, and it was actually $4 million the lawsuit.
Who had to pay?
Still
Don't know yet?
still
Oh, it's still
fighting.
going on right now? Yeah.
Still fighting, but it's both parties' problem.
Right.
Fault.
Right.
That's why
Yeah.
I put on PJ's excellent. So I don't know. I don't know what's good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always dirt
Or would it
problems.
be the designer's fault?
No.
Well, the architect and the engineer work for the owner. Well, it depends what the delivery method is, too.
You don't want
If it's design build, that could open up a whole new can of worms because the architect works for the general.
So first you would go to arbitration and then litigation, right?
Ideally, yeah. So now I want to jump into Timberline, and what I need to do first is, I guess it can work if I run off. Okay, so in order to get to Timberline on this computer, it's going to be under Programs, Sage 300, Estimating, and Estimating Extended. And we'll have a handout for you guys as well.
Estimating extended.
Yeah. Yes. And so this, if you open up, why don't you go ahead and copy from my file, the Stuart Lang week 10. Copy this whole week 10 down to somewhere on either your desktop or onto the computer files. So not on the network under my name. So copy this whole folder down to somewhere, I guess on your Z drive, I guess it would be, or something that's on the computer. So yeah, I think a thaw space maybe. I think that's unique to each computer. Or you can put it on the desktop. So we're going to go through this, the 01 takeoff in Timberline, copyright Kevin Miller. So you guys love those instructions and tutorials, so I got another one for you. So once you copy that down, and then you open up Estimating Extended, tell me when you get there, or look up at me if you've got to that far. Does it not let you copy your desktop?
No, it's there. I just
Good.
can't find the desktop now.
Oh, right.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Which what was the database one? Database.
So we'll wait till everyone gets to this point.
Oh, okay.
So we're just copying the file down to somewhere on your machine, and then opening up Estimating Extended. Everybody there? Okay. So it's asking you, do you want to open up a database? Say yes. And we're going to browse to wherever you just dropped that folder. So for me, it's on my jump drive. For you, it might be on your desktop. And you're going to go under Data Files, and then Estimating DB. And then click on this pei.dat file. And then hit open. And you'll get this error. Go ahead and hit OK. It will connect to just the default address book. I thought we would be using I thought this would have been the latest and greatest, so I'm going to have to copy a different version in. You all getting that same error? And then eventually you'll get to this blank page. Is anybody having trouble with that? Sweet. Is everybody here?
What did
Okay.
you say about the backup of the data file? You don't need that, or say yes?
Just say yes that you already have a backup, and then it should ask you to save something somewhere, and just go ahead and make up a name like test and say save when it asks you. You didn't see that?
No.
But you got to the screen?
Create files, pin selection.
That's what. So just go ahead and type in a name.
Okay.
Pin selection?
It's
How
okay,
about
it's
just
okay.
cancel it?
No, just go ahead and put.
Because it says printer setup or
Just hit start, and then type in test. Hit save. And then you should be to this point. And then we're going to start a new estimate by clicking on this new estimate button.
Are you recording?
I am. Started it again. Didn't I? Yeah. And then let's go ahead and put in the name. Just call it test. I'm going to open up and then under the folders, it's fine for now, so hit OK. And now it brings you up to this screen. And this is kind of just the initial bid setup stuff, right? So you could put in your street, the address. We're not going to worry about that. Put in your name as the estimator. And then I need to find my... Not yet. So we're going to follow this in here. So we're going to go ahead and put in for the job size 3500 and then SF. And then for the duration, let's just put 12 months. And there's other tabs here. We're not going to worry about them right now, but just know that there's other information that you can put in. So I'm going to go back to my main, look at it. It looks good. So I'm going to hit OK. And so this is your spreadsheet view. Along the bottom, you've got different sheets. It's different ways to sort your data. These are all your columns of data. And so basically, there's we need to do another setup item. So let's go under Edit, then Options. And then go to the folders. And then we're going to change the options file folder. We're going to browse back to that place that we just, our CM411 files. So I put it on my Z drive. BYUCM, estimating database, and you're going to choose the estimating DB folder. Just select it and then hit OK. And then change the reports to that same place. There's a report folder as well in there. So Z, BYUCM 411. Then there's a reports under that BYUCM 411 data files. Okay. Hit OK. Then OK again. And basically, two main ways to perform takeoffs. And I'm going to have this open on another screen so I don't have to keep switching back and forth for you guys.
Second one is reports.
Okay, this is the first one.
Yeah.
Oh, the second one is report.
Yeah.
Which is, oh, this one?
Yeah.
So is everybody to that point? Just about?
Second one is reports. First one is
It's under this.
So the folders, just again to recap, your database should be the pei.dat file that we did initially. The options folder should be under that same location, and then reports is under the reports folder. Now we're going to do an item takeoff. So if you click on this button, click it once, brings up the item takeoff. And we're going to do a takeoff under concrete. So open up, you see
Excuse me, which one do you click?
this one right here. You can also do takeoff and then item takeoff. But it's the second little icon there. So you notice our familiar CSI codes, right? Division 3 concrete. So you double click on the folder. That brings down to another level of folders. And we're going to take off continuous footings. And it's going to be item 10. Let's see. Yes. And so if you double click on one of those items, you'll see it pulls up a window where you can put in a quantity, right? And so you can practice, so put in how much footing forming you have. So if you had 50 lineal feet of a 12-inch deep footing, you see the units are written there for you. And then you hit this plus button. You see it adds now down below that item to the estimate. So it calculated 100 square feet of contact area. So I didn't have to think about, okay, if 50, times a foot, on each side and both sides, and so I didn't have to do any of that thinking. All that was already built in. Okay? And then if you hit OK, that pushes it to the estimate. So if you look out behind, look, there's my item. So let's do another one. We're going to do on Division 3, 21 concrete reinforcing. And
That's it. So that's it.
yeah, so that's for us. That's one single item. Yeah, it's in. Yeah, it's taken off. It's in. I have a cost. We can look at. I'll look at these in a second, the different things. But I want to do number 10, continuous footing rebar now. Okay, so I'm going to double click on it, and it's going to ask me, do I want to include rebar? Type yes. You see it brings up some more questions. And now it's put in dowels, and yes, I want to have dowels. And it pre-fills whatever a similar
So you have more question
pre-fills whatever that same variable was. So because before it knew we did 50 lineal feet of something, it's going to do it again. And so we can put this in here, and I'll have you guys just look at this. So this is the information that you want to put in there. So we have include dowels, yes, and then you enter the dimensions and answer the questions. Type a yes to include vertical rebar, and then lineal foot of continuous footing. We want to type in this amount for the lineal foot of continuous footing, 178.667.
Instead of the 50 linear feet?
Correct. We're going to assume that this is a new takeoff. It's different. $24 for the dowel on center spacing in inches. Dowel length is 5.25. I'm going to fill in all this information.
So everything is yes, right?
We put yes for vertical. We put yes for include dowels. That is a PDF sheet that we're getting this information from, which is in data files, projects, concrete tutorial. So basically we're taking off from the plans here. So I'm just telling you the answers for now, just so we can get the hang of how to input.
Continuous footing rebars.
The lineal foot of continuous footing is 178.667. So you can set it, obviously this all had to be set up in the database before, right? Someone had to put in this logic to be able to just answer some yes or no questions, and then it does a lot of the thinking for you.
So what's the vertical box?
What is it?
Yeah. What's the name? Is that one the down OC space?
Yes.
The vertical bar.
Yeah, that's going to be the 24. And the dowel length is the 178.667.
No, no.
Oh, sorry, you're right. That's the lineal foot.
It's 5.25.
And then you see it kind of brings up conversion factor, so we're using number 4, right? 0.668. And once you get all that in, go ahead and hit plus, and that gives you, there's my pounds of rebar for my continuous footings. And it doesn't get pushed into the estimate until you hit OK. So you could add additional things if you wanted to. So
Yeah, it says to say yes to the next thing above. That was a no before.
right. So if you hit plus again, it would add that entire quantity one more time. Does that make sense? So if I hit plus by accident, now I just doubled it.
Okay. So how can I?
So you can do undo the last pass
Okay.
by clicking this. Undo.
Because I had the level of feeling, so I have to double that version. Still like that.
Okay. So it should say pass 2 still, right? So that means you hit it twice. So you probably have 626 pounds? No? How many pounds do you have?
For class 2, I have 100.
So you can undo if you accidentally pass several times, or you can cancel and start over. But you could keep undoing all your last passes and then just do one pass. So if I click on undo here,
So why is this pass 2 rather than pass 1?
because we already finished pass 1. Once you hit plus,
Oh.
so now if I wanted to change a new footing, different length, boom, I could change it here. So you can also add a location to this. So in the lower portion of the takeoff window, location column, enter F1. So here, F1. And then hit OK. And now I just added my continuous footing rebar to my estimate. So let's go ahead and do another one. More rebar. So
The location.
we're going to select concrete footing rebar. So it's going to be the same item, right? Concrete footing rebar. And this is going to be for our F3 footings.
Continuous footing rebar?
Yes. So we're going to do it again. Now this is going to be our F3s. And I'll just show you the plan right here. So our F3 footing looks like it's along this right side, which is 50 foot 8 inches. And then it's also this curved portion right here. And so we need to figure out that curved. So we need to do, so we know what the diameter is of this, right? Who can tell me? The diameter of this half circle here. 30. 30 feet. Right? 64 minus 34 is 30. And so, and the radius, we know, it's either half the diameter or it tells you right here, it's a 15-foot radius. So in order to get my circumference, who knows the formula to get circumference?
Yeah, over here. No,
2 pi r.
2 pi r.
Pi times diameter. That'll give you the entire. And then you'll need to divide it by 2
Exactly.
because it's half, right? So let's go ahead and you can, it has kind of a built-in calculator function. So we're going to do the F3s, enter the dimensions. So for, open up your takeoff again, and for the length, go ahead and start typing this formula in. Let's see, I think you need to right click. Yeah, you need to right click on the cell for the length and then say calculator. And here is where you can type in this formula. So I'm right clicking on the lineal foot of continuous footing and then selecting calculator. And then, so now we're going to take that away. It's not 178 anymore. Now it's going to be this formula. So 2 times pi times 15, which is our radius.
Do we need to put in PI or just 3.1415 or something?
Either one. It'll recognize pi, the PI variable.
Would it recognize an exact dimension?
That's divided by 2 times 0.5. 15 is the radius.
You probably need less.
And then we want to add that 50 foot 8 inches as well.
Plus what?
Plus 50 foot 8 inches. So 8 inches in decimal is 8 divided by 12, which is
667.
so plus 50.667. And then make sure you put on the location. So you hit add pass, right? The plus. That adds it down to below. And then you change the location to F3. Right?
So you say hit OK and after that what?
What's the lineal foot? Somebody just tell me what it was calculated.
97.791.
Thank you. And so I hit add pass. So it gives me my quantity down here. And then I type in F3 because that's my F3 footings. And then I hit OK. And that pushes it to my estimate. So as you've been doing your takeoffs from Navisworks, the workflow would be you've exported all your quantities or you have Navisworks open, either way. And then you're just plugging in now the different parts. So when you went through your concrete foundation takeoffs, you're just plugging in, okay, this is 12-inch wide by 12-inch deep footing. Okay?
And that's what they're making it, that they're doing the beta testing for, that just automatically do it?
Yeah. Yeah, that is the idea, is that it would already be linked. So now, we'll do multiple item takeoff. So this is where you can do a few things at once. Okay, so we're going to do another one. We're going to select the three following items. So we're going to basically be doing all the other parts of the F3 footing. So it's going to be under 3310, continuous footings, 10, the forms, 20, placing the concrete, and then C30. Does that make sense? Are you able to find that? So under, not under concrete reinforcing, but under continuous footings, click on this one, 10, hold down Control. Let's see.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
31, not 30.
So 10, 20, and C30. So 10, 20, and C30. So double click each one. And you notice that it adds down below, these are 3 items that it's going to get pushed to. So 10, 20, and C30. And you notice a variable or two popped up after you clicked each one. Okay? So the old lineal foot is still there, which helps us in this case. But if we were doing a new one, we'd have to be careful. And since everything is good, let's see, the depth, we'll leave it as 12 since we already did that. And then make sure the width, we'll say, is 18 inches.
Mine didn't pop up with a width.
Do you have 3 items down here?
No.
That's
Oh.
what I believe too.
Should be just 10, 20, and C30.
Yeah, it didn't.
So you double click on each one to add it.
I did that.
How can I delete
I think you might have to just cancel and start over. So if I cancel, it just clears my slate. And then 10, 20, and C30. And then hit Add Pass. And this is going to be F3. And if you want to copy it down, you,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
okay?
Sorry.
It's all right. So I didn't really need to.
I double clicked, and then where did you get the 12 and the 8? I was 12 and 18.
from the 3D?
I put those in. I told you to put those in.
No,
So
no, yeah, but
You have the same problem I did. You have to double click each one of those 3.
I had
so
it
you
already.
have a little line
That's,
below.
Right,
Yeah.
it's over the end.
yeah.
sorry.
So about the 18, I kept the end.
Because it remembers what you put previously.
Yeah.
And then I said, we're good, we're good.
So now this is still the F3 footing. So I can either type F3 in all of them or type it in the first one and then click and select all of these and then right click and fill down. And it's like copy and paste basically. Whatever the top one is, it's going to bring it all the way down. And then hit OK.
I'm looking in the 3000 PSI and getting 40 steps.
You probably did 30 instead of C30.
How can you write down?
So you just click and hold. So type in the first one,
Okay.
and then click and then hold. Just hold down and then right click and fill down.
Yeah, because
Some cases that can be.
but I can resist the third.
Okay? So now we want to revise something. So something happened, the designers change the width of the footing. Oh no. So we can never fear. So we'll want to we can close this view. We don't need to be in takeoff view right now. And if we come over here and we select on the quantity column, select all the quantities, not the units, for the F3 footings by clicking and holding down the left mouse button on the takeoff quantities. So all my F3s, which is everything I've done so far. So I click and
How can you select that? Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
did I not do one of them that you did?
I have a little different.
What? I
Some
probably
thousand.
did something
I might not have done all the ones I was trying to show.
Some thousand, right?
Maybe you just added a bunch. So regardless, so highlight those, right click, and say enter dimensions. And part of the reason is I think I selected, because we had F1 and then also F3 footings, right? So where is my... So click on the location and phase tab before you do anything. So you notice that sorts it by location first, which is what we put the name of our footings, and then by phase, which is our CSI code. So that's what these do. These kind of just sort it by different ways. So now, all of these F3s, they're all in one place. So I'm going to highlight all the takeoff quantities of my F3s. Very different quantities you have.
So I have just the first one.
So
The
maybe you
313.
forgot to put in the location on one of them.
No, he has the location, but under takeoff quantity, he just has the units. He doesn't have a value.
So you never hit OK when you did your takeoff. You have to hit OK, and then it pushes it to the estimate. So you can do another one real quick. But so highlight them, right click, enter dimensions, and you notice all of the same dimensions for all those items just popped up. So we can just tweak it by saying the width is now 30 inches. And you could add things, but no, we want to actually replace this quantity. So I'm putting 30, replace quantity. So now it just adjusted all those quantities for me without having me to do, oh, that changed the surface area for the forming, and then how much concrete cubic yardage should it change, and so it's all just does that for you. Save some headache.
What can you do now?
Sure, so I highlighted all of the quantities, right click, enter.
Highlight the just for F3.
Correct, yeah, I was just changing for F3. Enter dimensions. I changed the width of the footing to 30 and then said replace quantity. All right.
And then adding one.
That would be if, oh, I just need to add a little bit more. I'm going to add an extra 50 lineal feet.
Yeah.
You could do that.
Just for factor of safety.
Yeah, or another takeoff. Say, oh, I don't want to have to go through that whole thing again. I know it's just these. Change my variable. It's just another way to take off. So now you can also combine items. So if we go back to the phase and item, you see we have multiple entries, right, of the same thing. They're just different quantities. If you come up here to the combine items, it basically just says anything that's the same name and the same price, make them one-liners. So it's a way to kind of simplify down your spreadsheet. You see the little star here? That means that that's more than one item.
Yeah, the food and forms.
Like
It's like what?
Grouping.
Totally. Yeah, it's like subtotals.
Something.
Okay, so now we'll make sure we're on the phase item, which I think we just all moved to. And we're going to go to the edit menu and then options. And then to, let's see. So we already changed our export or report folder. So that is already done then. So we can hit OK. And then we're going to click this spreadsheet layout button. And then we're going to create a new layout. So say add. And then we're going to put in this information. So name it, CM411. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but give it a name. You can do it UCLA to be more. And then click on the Use for New Estimates box. And then make these changes. So everything that's listed here, you'll want to make a change to. If it's not listed here, just leave it how it is. So group, make sure you check on the box that says visible. You can change the font color to blue. And make sure all these other items are here as well.
There's no food, it's baby.
Go down to the bottom.
Nice. So eggs mean we have to put it
Yeah, so that would be a checked box.
on the label.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So group should be under column, right? Under column.
So we just want to check that it's visible, which it already is, I think, by default. And then you're just going to change the font, right, to font color to blue. So they're all. You're not going to change this. So if it's not listed, that means you're not going to change it at all.
Oh, so if it's visible, it stays visible?
Right. So on this column, you'll notice like there's some things, like item, it's not listed here, so don't change it. So we'll just leave it unchecked. So phase, don't need that. Do need description. We need takeoff quantity. Okay. How you guys doing?
Still
It's a little hard to read when you move.
Sorry.
So how about we miss one?
Then I will probably give you a lashing.
How about we just give up?
It's okay if you don't get them all completely. We're trying to show.
I'm looking at the tutorials.
Good. So you'll notice.
Then we press OK.
Mm-hmm. And you know at the bottom, make sure to enter 8 in the locked column cell.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom right.
I was locked out 8.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do more than one?
For more extra credit. Because they're extra credit happy.
Huh?
Because they're extra credit hungry.
The midterm killed me.
I'm trying to negotiate with my boss. Like, if I get 100% in the class, then we talk about covering the cost.
There you go. Sorry. Keep moving it. Has everybody got?
To be honest, I think
It's points
I-
off.
I can't even find group. Or am I like?
Groups
It's
up
like
at the
the
very
second
top.
one down.
Sorry, I
don't
keep
have
moving.
it.
It's up there.
No, it's up. Where is?
The name could have gotten changed if you hover over it and it pops up a little yellow box that says a name on it. So for instance, sorry Mark. So if I look at my waist, see if I hover over it, it says what it used to be and what I changed it to.
I see. I have update database,
Huh?
and then they're supposed to be grouped, right?
Right?
No.
What's the next one?
Bid item.
So hover over it. Does it say anything?
Bid item.
You're not able to
I didn't.
delete.
Well, you can move. So I can move this around. So it could be have gotten moved down. I don't think you could. I don't think you can delete it.
You can delete.
You can delete a whole. I don't think you can.
No, just the words.
Right. Yeah. You can change the name and you can make it
Yeah.
blank.
So I
Or
can shoot at my students.
I promise you all, I didn't do anything. I opened, and then it was not there.
it's weird.
It is, I have another bid item too.
So notice here you've got. Oh, I have something else open. I think. So it lays it out. You've got all your different items here. And see when I move to the right, remember I locked it on this 8th column, so I can always see at least the takeoff quantity and the names of it, so it never gets lost, right? Yeah, so it's locking that. And you'll notice for instance, each one of these prices, it's actually 2 different columns. One for the cost per unit and one for the unit, right? That's what you were checking. So we want to, it looks and reads like it's just one, but. So now that we got that in, so for printing a report, you can do it in a couple ways. You can set it up how you want on your spreadsheet and then make the report match, or you can set it up on the report side exactly how you want it, and it doesn't matter what the spreadsheet looks like when you started the report. So we're going to do the first way. Since we just took all the time to make this look how we want it, we're going to hit the print spreadsheet, and we're just going to do the current layout, but we're going to come in and go to report options, and we're going to say pre-fill from spreadsheet. So that just brought in, made all the settings.
What we got?
So we said spreadsheet options. I'll go back. So I clicked on print spreadsheet. It's also under report and spreadsheet. And then I'm pulling my current layout, which is what I got, and then report options. And then I click pre-fill for spreadsheet. And so make these changes on the report options tab. Say do not print a cover page. Click on combine items if it's not already checked, and say print estimate totals. And then on the page setup tab, change the orientation to landscape. Select fit to 1 page wide. And then let's go ahead and change the headers as well. I'm going to see if bear with me just 1 second. In the PDF view, it's a little bit difficult. If I do it on the web view, it might be easier. It's been 2 hours. You guys need a potty break? Why don't we take a break?
Okay, that would be great.
Come back and we'll give it 10 minutes. So at 1:45. Thank you. Okay. So we're doing our report. Let's add a header and footer. So we're back into the report. I don't know if you closed out of it or not. But what we did was we went print spreadsheet, report options, pre-fill. I changed my page setup to landscape and fit to 1 page wide. Right? And then I'm going to change my header footer. And so top left box where it says company name, and highlight the company name field, delete, remove the company name, and then select insert field. So delete where it says company name, then click insert, and then click on estimator. And then close it. So I'm going to double click, delete company name, insert field, and I'm going to find where it says estimator.
It's about midway. If you pull your tab on the right, midway.
Oh yeah, you're right, it's not alphabetical, is it? Estimator. And I double click on it, and so it adds estimator to that field. I can close. I can do a little preview. So there's my name, S. Lang, because remember I put that in the front page. So it pulls those ranges. And I'm going to hit OK.
Pull this down halfway. That's there. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you could have texted it.
Let's save the layout. And let's call it, what does it call it? Let's call it UCLA again. And before we print it, let's close. We want to look at what our totals are, our below the line stuff. So to do that, we click on this totals tool. Oops, I just dragged it. I didn't want to do that. Well, I docked it looks like. So you can dock it to the right or left if you want, or I'll just keep it undocked. Okay. So keep going through the tutorial. The very last column is a percent column that needs to be made wider. And you can go up at the very top and drag it a little wider. And if you wanted to, you could come in and you could change any specific items. You could add different items. You could add overhead and fee. You could add things like that. But we're going to make it so you can change the way that this looks. We're going to say this
one is Sigma. Yeah.
Okay.
On the edge. Yeah. Wow. There you
Now we'll go ahead, and once you got all the columns so you can see all the numbers, then we'll go back to the report, the print spreadsheet, and you'll notice that there's our layout right there. And so we can do preview. And I think I forgot to make some changes here. So in my report options, I wanted it to print estimate totals. And then I wanted it to combine items, which is already checked. So I'm going to save this layout and save it over my UCLA. Yes, I want to rewrite it. Preview. And you can see it gives you that general information. You go to the next page. There's my takeoff, and then with our totals down below. Somebody printed. Huh?
Not me.
Busted.
So we can, you can't
Someone's.
find his name on the top, right?
Mm-hmm. We will find
See
out.
what it was.
Points off.
Who just lost 50 points? Oh, you didn't get your name on it.
Oh,
So that's even more wrong. So we're gonna I'm gonna close out of this print preview, and I'm going to export once I get it how I want it.
Mine, I only see my first page. We'll see if it,
You have to click up and say next page up here. It doesn't just scroll. You have to actually click next in previous page. Okay. So go ahead and export it and then save it to your somewhere on your computer. And we'll upload it, but and see it defaults to your reports folder. Now we'll jump into assembly takeoff. So we went kind of the single way, item by item. And I was talking about more kind of automating the whole assemblies. So now we're going to see that a little bit. So we're going to create a new estimate. So go ahead and make a new estimate. And you can do that just like we did before. Call this assembly. The folders should be the same. And I'm going to put that same information. What was the square footage again? 3,500 square feet, 12 months.
Wait, where?
And job size.
Correct, yeah, sorry. Job size will be 3,500 square feet.
Did we get that window again?
We said new estimate. So you click on this,
I did that. I only have two tabs. That's the
and then you hit OK.
folder.
Once you put the names, hit OK.
Oh, I see. It just goes up. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Okay. $3,500 for the job size. Put your name in there.
Project name might
Estimator is your name. Project name should be assembly.
then okay.
Yep. Now we're going to go to assembly takeoff, which is the third button, or takeoff and assembly takeoff.
Can you close the first one?
No, it's still open. So if you go under Window, and then you see these are the three. I have three. I started one before. But these are all the different files that are open. So I'm going to go to my assembly. Now we're going to go into 03, 30, and then 10 for continuous footings. So 03, 30, sorry. Continuous footing, so 0310, sorry. And then I think it's just,
Continuous 31.
yeah, so it's a little different in here, isn't it? Continuous footings, so we just want the regular continuous footings. So you just double click on it and it opens up this new pass, you see? And then it has, just by clicking that one item, look at all these different items that came up. Alright? So now you just have these variables, and enter the length for the F1 footing. So F1, let's calculate off here, 64. So under the length column, right click and hit calculator. So length, right click, calculator. And I want you to type in these values. So 64 plus 50.667 plus 64. Okay. And okay. That's my length. My width. My width is 1'4". My depth is 8. So the width is in inches, right? So what's 1'4" in inches?
1.333.
16 inches.
Oh,
And then my depth is 8 inches. Concrete PSI is what? So that's 4,000 for the slab on grade.
unless otherwise noted, 3,000.
So it looks like we got 3,000 psi.
I didn't get that row of the PSI.
You have to put in the depth.
Up. Just for
Yeah, once you put them, that one, you know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like magic.
make them 88.
So then you keep entering in the rest of the dimensions. So include rebar. Yes.
So what did you hit then for you?
Y.
Why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. And then the same thing we did before, right? We said include dowels. Yes. My vertical bar spacing was 24. The dowel length was
Something 667.
5.25.
Oh yeah, the ball length. I got
And then the pound per foot, we're using number 4, right? So number 4 is 0.668. I don't think we did crossbars before. And we could reference the drawing.
So 5.250.
5.25, yeah. Yeah, I mean. And then pump concrete, no. So then once you do that, you just hit add pass. And we need to assign F1 for the location for each item in the assembly.
I guess correct.
So F1, and then I'm going to copy down, fill down, then hit OK. And that pushes it to the estimate, and then kind of starts over. Now we need to do the F3s. So we're going to do we're going to use the revised dimensions we did. So double click on continuous. This is going to be, what was it again? 97 point something?
97.67.
Whoa, nice. 97.67. The F3s are 2 feet wide and 12 inches deep. But remember, we revised it to 30 inches wide by 12 inches deep. (30 by 12, 3,000 psi). Everything else is the same. Hit add. These are F3s. Fill down. And then hit OK. And then go ahead and close the takeoff window. So now, if we go to location and phase, we've got all those same takeoffs, but we were able to do it a little quicker, just kind of all in one shot. Now let's do foundation assembly takeoff. So it's 4,000 psi foundation walls, and we're including pumping for the foundations. And then the location is going to be FND. Okay, so based off of this wall, or this plan, we're going to be taking off these 4'8" high foundation walls. So basically it's going all the way around, right? So we're going to take off a new assembly, and we're going to do foundation walls, and then we'll do this first one, CWF01. So, yeah, we'll do the first one. 01. So let's use the calculator for the lineal foot of wall. Let's add these together. So we got 64 times 2 basically, and then
128,
and then 50
178,
foot 8 times 2 plus our radius amount. So you can use the calculator there if you want. You can try and do it in your head. So again, it was 64 and then 50 foot 8 and then a 15 foot radius half circle. So 2 times 15 times pi divided by 2. 276.45. So you guys got?
Yeah.
So it does.
And so what's my wall width? 8 inches. Height 4 foot 8. So you can do a calculator if you want, say 4 plus 8 divided by 12, even if you didn't want to have to do the math. What's my PSI? 4,000. It looks like I have horizontal and vertical rebar. Number 4s, verts at 24 on center, and then 3 number 4s with a 30 diameter bar lap.
The overlap.
30 diameters of a bar. So yes, yes, 30 bar lap, number 4s. What did we say the regular material length was for rebar? 50 feet or 20 feet? Say 20 feet. I think we use number 4 for both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, both number 4s, which is 0.668. My vert spacing is 24 on center. My bar length,
Is this spacing center to center between the bars?
So my reinforcing
Yeah. 24.
yeah, but the height of it, let's call it 4 feet.
And no.
The verts.
Yeah, this one 4 feet. That's too much because all of them 4 feet 8. So,
But then you still have this down below, so it's probably a little too much, but
yeah.
call it 3/6.
The elbow is only how much is yeah, it's probably yeah.
And then we are going to assume concrete pumping. So a lot of different variables there, right? So that would be a lot of different calculations if we had to do that all by hand. But
Yeah.
it's set up so we just put the variables in, hit plus, and it does the calculations for us. And so the location on this one, we said FND, right? We wanted to call this FND. And so let's hit OK and then close. So it doesn't go into the estimate until we hit OK. So that's important to remember too. So then hit close.
I have an sign. You don't have it.
Yeah, this should be in a different color, right? Oh, you have someone unassigned?
Yeah. No, video is.
What you might not have put, you might not have copied down all of the right name.
Oh.
Does this come up as a different color on yours?
Should be yellow.
Supposed to be yellow.
It does on the other tab, but not on this tab.
So it should be font with 0 amounts should be this blue background. If it has a $0. It's okay. So we can do a best fit for all the columns. So go ahead and click this up here, which selects everything. And then double click. Let's see. Oh, right click and say best fit. And then it makes them all the correct fit. And now let's do another report. So we want to do the spreadsheet report again, and then select your UCLA format. Whoops, wrong button. So here's my report, UCLA. Then go into report options. And then if I click pre-fill, that's going to change what this layout is. But if I wanted it to match what's here, I can say pre-fill. We want to combine items, so click that. Click print estimate totals, and then preview it. And there, and I didn't put my name on it. Okay, so go ahead and export that report to a PDF. Assembly.